and welcome back to our program. It's been a while. Here we are in downtown San Antonio for a public access television show, and of course the name of my show is World Peace. I have been on the road, traveling, and very active with some other activities, and we're going to show you some film footage later at the end of the show, the last 6 minutes, that will show you when I was on the Texas border at Brownsville and Matamoros. And of course, here we are at the end of February and looking for the primaries elections that we have. Even though we have early voting here in February, the official date of our primary election for the major parties in our Texas political system, according to the Texas Election Code, the major parties are required to hold a primary the first week in March, and that's when you can, if you're participating in that. I'm encouraging you not to participate in the primaries because I believe that you lose your independence when you align yourself with a Republican or Democratic Party. In other words, as soon as you vote, then you are a registered Republican or a registered Democrat because of your vote, because you participated in their primary election process. Then for the rest of the year, that's what you are. You're either Republican or Democrat. So I'm neither one. I'm a libertarian, and we would love for you to participate in our convention. Then you can actually go to convention and tell everyone, share your concerns with everyone at the convention, and your voice will have a lot more impact, I believe. If you feel strongly about something, you can put that in the introduce it as a resolution to be brought forward for the national platform. So basically, here I'll show you, collected some information. And this is the Texas Voters Bill of Rights. So your voting rights are protected, and these rights are guaranteed to qualified registered voters. And it's signed by the mayor, Nirenberg, County Judge Nelson Wolf, Jacqueline Callanan, who is our Bexar County Election Administrator, and wow, this is a hard one to read. M-A-D-H, it looks like Madhu, S-R-I-D-H-A-R, Sridhar, and this is the League of Women Voters. Very good, League of Women Voters. So the League of Women Voters actually publishes some information as well. Anyway, I'll read the Texas Voters Bill of Rights. You have a right to vote if you're a qualified registered voter. Personally, I feel that everyone should have a vote. So that every single person, if they desire to participate in the election, you know, I don't believe that we should force people to vote. I know that some places, some countries in the world do require you to vote, whether you want to vote or not. But if you would like to vote, I think you should have a vote. There should be unlimited, no restriction on voting, and then we can give you there should be no restriction on getting a provisional ballot. In other words, go ahead and let anyone desiring to vote have a provisional ballot, and then we will, the Bexar County Election Office or the election authority can verify whether or not you're eligible to vote. But at least you would, that would resolve a whole lot of conflicts and a whole lot of problems about whether or not, you know, we should allow people to vote. Everyone should get a provisional ballot if they desire one, and then at the Bexar County Elections Office or the election authority in your locality determine if you're eligible to cast a vote. But at least you have a provisional ballot, and we know that everyone has one if they want one. And so the League of Women Voters says you're eligible to vote if you're a United States citizen and a resident here, and you're 13, excuse me, it's hard to read this, I'm getting older. You're 18 years, not 13 years, 18 years old, at the time of the election and you are not convicted you're of a major crime, which is a felon. So if you're a misdemeanor convict, that's okay, but if you're convicted of a felony, then you're not eligible, but otherwise, if you're in Texas, under Texas law, if your sentence is completed, including probation and parole, you're once again eligible to vote. And you're not declared mentally incapacitated in a court, in a legal court or court of law, and you are registered to vote. So, as I said, I believe that everyone should be given a provisional ballot. Everyone. Anyone that desires a provisional ballot should get a provisional ballot, and then we can let the Bexar County Election Office worry about it after the fact, but at least everyone has a provisional ballot. And here it is in Espanol, which is only appropriate since long before the Battle of the Alamo and long before there was an American Revolution, this ground that we're standing on here today was under the Mexican government and the Spanish government before that. And many people have roots that are from that time. That wasn't that long ago, less than 200 years ago. At any rate, so I want to tell you a little bit more about being a libertarian. And here I've brought the some information, so I don't know if you can read this. This is the Libertarian 2020 presidential candidate. This is a voter guide which is published in Houston, Texas. It's called the TexasFreePress.com. So you look that up, and I'm going to be a candidate in that guide. So I'm submitting that today. And here is the Libertarian Party platform. So you know that Republicans, Democrats have a platform that their candidates run on, and the Libertarian Party has a platform that our candidates run on. And so I'll read you a little bit about the preamble from our convention, which was adopted. We have a convention every 2 years, a national convention every 2 years, unlike the major parties which have the national convention only during the presidential election years. And here the first part of the preamble: as a libertarian, comma, we seek a world of liberty and a world in which all individuals have sovereignty over their own lives, and they are not forced to sacrifice their values for the benefit of the socialist state. I should say that here it says for the benefit of, in other words, trying to respect the individual versus the collective of all individuals, which is the state. We believe that respect for individual rights is the essential precondition for a free and prosperous world, and that force and fraud must be banished from human relationships, and that only through freedom can peace and prosperity be realized. Consequently, we defend each person's right to engage in any activity that is peaceful and honest, and welcome the diversity that freedom brings. The world we seek to build is one where individuals are free to follow their own dreams in their own way without interference from government or from an authoritarian state. In the following pages, we set forth our basic principles and enumerate various stands derived from the principles. These policies are not our goal. However, our goal is nothing more nor less than a world set free in our lifetimes, and it is to this end that we promote these platforms and principles. We, the members of the Party of the Libertarians, challenge the state, the power of the socialist or the authoritarian state, and we defend the rights of the individual. We hold that all individuals have the right to exercise their sole domain over their own lives and have the right to live in whatever manner they choose, so long as they do not forcibly interfere with the equal rights of others to live in, that others also have that right to live in a manner of their own choice. Governments throughout history have regularly operated on the opposite principle, that the state has the right to dispose of the lives of individuals and their work, their labor, whatever they've been able to do, that the state has the right to take that as well. And even within the United States, all of our parties, our political parties, other than our own Libertarian Party, in other words, the other major parties, which is Republican, Democrat, Green Party, and there are a number of others, those other parties grant to the government the right to regulate the lives of individuals and to take their assets without their consent. So that is our objection, that is our argument, and that is what we're stating that our party is different from. We, on the contrary, deny the right of any government to do these things and hold that where government exists, they must not violate the rights of individuals, namely the right to life. Accordingly, we support the prohibition of the initiation of force against others, and we support the right to liberty and speech and action. And accordingly, we oppose all attempts by government to abridge the freedom of speech and the freedom of the press, as well as government censorship in any form. And number 3 is the right to property. Accordingly, we oppose all government interference with private property, such as confiscation, nationalization, eminent domain, and we support and prohibit we support the prohibition of robbery and trespass and fraud and misrepresentation. Since governments, when they're instituted, they must not violate individual rights, and we oppose all interference by government in the areas of voluntary and contractual relations. And people should not be forced to sacrifice their lives and property for the benefit of others. They should be left free by government to deal with one another as free traders and the resultant economic system. The only one compatible with the protection of individual rights is the free market. So let me read that one more time. That was confusing. Okay, so again, we're talking about government versus the people, and it says they should be left free. The people should be left free free from government interference in order to deal with one another as free traders. Semicolon. And the resulting system which is the only one compatible, is the free market system. Okay, and then it goes on to talk about personal property and talking about economic liberty and talking about securing that liberty, and finally major article number 4 is the omissions, and it says anything, our silence about any subject matter or any government law or government regulation or ordinance or directive, our silence about any edict or control or regulatory agency or activity or any other should not be construed to imply that we're approving. Just because we haven't mentioned it here, that doesn't mean that we're approving of government regulation. Okay, and basically today I want to talk about, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, that we're going to show some film footage that we shot at the border. And so hopefully we're going to have a photograph of myself, of yours truly, at the border, which was I think the week before last, and we were there to assist with those seeking asylum, which were not allowed into the United States now. They're forced to remain in Mexico, just across the border there. So we walked across the bridge from Brownsville into Matamoros, and we carried with us some supplies, things that people, we knew that there was an encampment of perhaps as many as 2,000 people or more, and mostly just had very small tents that they were had pitched on the Mexican side of the border, and we went into those encampments with our supplies of shampoo and things that they might be able to use when they're camping out there. So, and then quickly came back, but there's no passport requirement to get into Mexico, but as we left Mexico, you better have your passport if you wanted to quickly exit and return to the United States. So what we want to talk about here is the policy regarding immigration. And as you know, the current administration in the United States has made immigration more difficult. It was already fairly difficult, and now the Trump administration wants to implement the MPP, which is the Migrant Protection Protocol, the so-called Remain in Mexico protocol. Again, the MPP, Migrant Protection Protocol, that the Trump administration has passed into law, and so basically we have objection to that, as you might imagine, and so our position, the Libertarian Party platform, under Section 3, talks about free trade and migration, and I'll just read to you very briefly what the policy platform of the Libertarian Party. Under 3.4, we support the removal of government impediment to free trade, and we support the political freedom of anyone to escape from tyranny, and we demand that individuals are not unreasonably constrained by the government if they desire to cross the border between, the boundaries between government, the political borders, and finally, the economic freedom demands the unrestricted movement of humans as well as financial capital across borders. So, basically, a very brief statement that we support people seeking asylum, or if they believe that their lives would be improved if they could cross borders. We think that makes a better world, and trying to arbitrarily restrain people, or obviously I prefer extreme vetting. We need to know if people are seeking to cross a border to avoid prosecution, or if they're kind of engaged in criminal activity all around the world and they're trying to cross a border. That's not a good thing. But if they're simply seeking freedom from tyranny or political oppression, then we would encourage that. And basically, I want to let you know, as a candidate, what I support. And so I'm going to turn right quick to my position on immigration, which, as I said, I will be posting on the the Libertarian 2020 Presidential Candidate Voter Guide, and my policy and position will be there shortly. And here it is. Let's see here. Where was I? Oh, here it is. Position on immigration. And I support the opportunity for anyone, anywhere, anytime to seek migration and to seek a judgment for asylum. So many in the legal community, the Immigration Lawyers Association of the United States, believe that the Constitution of the United States provides the opportunity for individuals to have their day in court, to seek a court hearing and to present their evidence, whatever evidence they call it. One of the requirements is a credible fear interview, and in other words, if there are some very dire circumstances in other countries, other nations around the world, then we would like to hear them. And I certainly believe that should happen. And just because Donald Trump now has forced people, or tried to force people from the border and from seeking asylum at the border, then I believe that they should still have their day in court. And of course, what has happened in the Remain in Mexico policy, they have what they are calling tent courts, where they set up this video interview. So you're actually not in a court, you're in a tent, and the judge is not there. He's in, say, Fort Worth, Texas, listening to these interviews, where you can imagine that many fewer asylum cases are approved in that manner, because it's so difficult to bring your evidence, and if you're trying to seek counsel, how are you going to have a counsel available for that? And so as a person, I was raised to believe in American freedom and liberty, and unfortunately that does not always happen. And so that's one reason I left the major political parties, the Republican and Democrat. I certainly, as a youngster, was familiar with those and participated in those parties from time to time. But now I realize that really liberty and freedom and the desire to gain independence and to have a voice in my own governance required me to seek a political party that actually offered that and strives to offer that to every individual. And I hope that everyone listening today will think seriously about not voting in the political party primaries. As I said, once you vote, you're registered, you're labeled as a Republican or Democrat, depending on which primary. And if you did not vote, then you could participate in our Libertarian Convention, which will be that same week. So just find out about the Libertarian Party, lpbear.org. That's the Bexar County Libertarian Party, BEXAR, lpbear.org. And you can learn about participating in the Libertarian Party and having your voice really matter and really be heard. Thank you.
My name is Josh Rubin. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. And where I'm sitting now is in Brownsville, Texas, right at the foot of the Gateway International Bridge that goes across into Matamoros, Mexico. The project here is called Witness at the Border. And the reason we're here is because what's going on across the river is hidden from sight for most Americans. If you look over that way, you're going to see practically nothing of what's going on. And what's going on is this: a policy called MPP, or Migrant Protection Protocols, that I guess is better known as Remain in Mexico. When people come and ask for asylum from the places that they're leaving, a lot of them leaving Central America, where they're fleeing violence and pretty horrible poverty. When they come here asking for asylum, they're told to turn back and they're told to wait in Mexico. What that has done to the town of Matamoros is it's established a camp of tents, of small tents that people are living in along the banks of the river. There are between 2,000 and 3,000 of them. They are utterly dependent on the charitable acts of some organizations that work here from Brownsville. They're not supported by the U.S. government. They're not supported by the Mexican government. Both of them pretty much have washed their hands of the situation. As far as they're concerned, these people can take care of themselves, but they can't. They have no way to make a living. They have no way to support themselves, and they're utterly dependent on the charity brought across by a lot of relief organizations that are here in Brownsville. Our project is this. Our project is to make something visible. That's why we call ourselves witnesses, because as witnesses we see what goes on, and we try and show people that we see it and show people what we're seeing. We think that if people see the situation as we see it, they'll want what we want, which is an end to this cruel behavior, this cruel policy that often leads to people's deaths. Because one of the things that I think most people don't realize is that people on the other side of this river are in jeopardy. These are cities like Matamoros on the border, and other places like Nuevo Laredo and Juarez further up the border in Texas are very dangerous places. They're dominated by cartels, they're dominated by criminal elements. People are at risk of being kidnapped and ransomed. There are many cases of rape, including child rape, that go on over there. So no matter how much help these people get during the day, at night they're subject to those dangers. And the thing I think that we really want people to understand in our country is that that is our policy that's doing it, that we are actually doing it, that we are paying the money to the people who are making the decisions to put these people at risk. The other thing that we're witnessing here, in addition to the encampments of thousands of people on the other side of the river, is we're witnessing at the airport deportation flights, because our American policy, immigration policy, is also doing this other thing, and that's when people come here, it's decided that they're going to go to detention, they're going to be held for a little while, they're going to go through a rapid and very unfair asylum request process, they're going to be told no, and they're going to be loaded on planes, and they're going to be flown back to Central America, to the very places that they fled, or a nearby country to the very places that they fled in fear for their lives. We've been going to the airport in the morning, and we've been seeing people brought in on buses, shackled, single men, single women, and sometimes families with children and infants, loaded onto these planes to be sent back to Central America. We recently learned that of the people that have been deported to El Salvador, many hundreds of them were killed upon their return, which forces us to put together a couple of facts, and that is, we are sending them there, and they are dying. Can't help but come to the conclusion that we are exporting the process of extermination of people. So, we're witnesses. We've come here, we've been here for 37 days, we plan to be here for a lot longer, to make sure that this act of putting them across the river and behind a fence where they are not easily seen, and loading them up in the dark in the mornings at airports along the border here so that they're not easily seen. We're trying to make sure that that doesn't mean that we don't know about it, and it doesn't. Well, we're concerned, because when you take a whole bunch of poor, victimized people and you put them where they can't be seen, it's just too easy for them to be killed, to die, to perish, to be disappeared, to go away. We're here to make sure that we see them, and ultimately we'll be in a position to testify about what we've seen.